Hi, I'm Guy Lawrence, and you are listening to the Guy Lawrence podcast. If you're enjoying this content and you want to find out more and join me and come further down the rabbit hole, make sure you head back to guylawrence.com.au. Awesome, guys. Enjoy the show. Josh, welcome to the podcast.
How you going, Guy? Great to be
I'm
here,
very,
mate.
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for coming on. I've been really looking forward to this today when I reached out and asked you to come on. You never cease to amaze me, mate. I've even got your book here, which I know has been a dream of yours for so long. And I'm just even looking at the quality of it, mate, and what you've put into it. And your journey is just mind blowing. So, mate, congrats, man. Seriously. And I'm very excited for people to hear your journey because everyone needs to hear it as far as I'm concerned.
Well, thank you very much, Guy. That's very kind of you to say. No, the book's been a tremendous success. I mean, it's been better than what I anticipated when I first released it. But the book's a cool thing, Guy. It's great. But the thing that's getting me most excited is just how I'm feeling right now is where I'm sitting talking to you and just being in this position I am. This year's really taken a different direction, and having clarity in my head, energy, and reduced pain. And that's, to me, that's more than what the book's doing. The book's just a bonus, but if both of them are coming in together, then hey, all the better.
Yeah, totally. Well, look, do you know what? I was thinking about where to start this podcast before I jumped on, and I thought, maybe we should start about what the circumstances where we first met, and maybe share a little bit where you were at that point, and then we can work backwards and go through your journey.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to go back from that as well, because there's so much involved to where I got to you. So you just want to kick off where I first met you?
Yeah, let's start there.
I think you and we were both attending the first Wim Hof Retreat in Melbourne. And I was really excited about this retreat. I was quite in a depressed state, I suppose. And I've been doing this Wim Hof method for about, 5, 6, 7 weeks. And I was living in Melbourne at the time because I was getting treatment, which we'll talk about later, I suppose. And I was down there with Guy and a heap of other legends, and I was really excited to see what would unfold for me. But unfortunately, I didn't get to participate in the course itself. I woke up in the morning having a heart attack, and
this was 3 years ago, right? Pretty much, I think.
Pretty much 3 years ago. Yeah, pretty much 3 years ago. I couldn't get out of bed, and the pain in my chest was immense, and I was closing my eyes. And from what happened in my life prior, this was just another event unfolding for me that I could not believe I was in the situation I was in. And I was so disappointed in myself, and I didn't want to reach out for help. I just was in the bed. I actually asked, God, just take me. I've had enough of this. But it took me about an hour to ask for help. To my detriment, it can be either hinder or help me. And I reached out for help, and the man himself who I'm talking to come up and help me, Guy Lawrence.
And that was the first time I met you, literally.
First time I ever seen your face. You put your right hand on my left shoulder, if I can recall, and you told someone to ring the ambulance, and you just told me and talked me through it, and I was just clenching my chest, crying, and you were talking to me, it's going to be okay, and that, and I.
And how old were you at that point, Josh?
I would have been 31 now. I would have been 28, 29.
28, 29 years old, right? Yeah. So, and as you can imagine, me walking in, seeing you there, meeting you for the first time, because we were in like a dormitory at the Wim Hof Retreat.
Yeah.
And just seeing you in absolute agony, at this age as well, because, I've got 10 years on you, maybe.
Right. See the grey hairs too, Guy,
yeah. And it blew my mind. And I wanted to start from that point first, because I saw you in that point. I've gotten to know you obviously since that point and the journey you've been on. But then, mate, the journey before that as well, and it's clearly been, many years. So it was fascinating because at that point, I had no idea what you'd been through, where you'd been at, what had happened, zero. So take us back to the start and what got you to that Wim Hof retreat and all the bits in between.
Well, obviously, it's a bit of a story, hence the reason I've written a book. But so I was about 2011. Was probably my prime year. 2011, I was 23 years old. I was ranked the #1 fastest 800-meter runner in New Zealand at the time. I was fit and strong. I was healthy. I was happy. I had dreams, I had goals, I had ambitions and all that. And I was very focused, very driven. And that year I won a couple of races and was in the form of my life, Guy. New Zealand Champs was on the horizon. I was definitely the contender for the gold medal for the New Zealand title. And then I'd come over to Australian Champs and try my have a crack over there and see how we went. But unfortunately, after my race, my body started deteriorating somehow. And I tore ligaments and chipped the bone in my left ankle when I was out running. And my body just started deteriorating. I had no rhyme and reason for it. I just put it down. You know, just being young, you just put it aside, you know. I didn't even know what cancer that was. And all of a sudden it was just deteriorating. I did one last bike race and I collapsed halfway of this bike race. It was a 100K bike race. And I just thought I was low on blood sugar. I got up and just finished the race. I was the last one to finish where I should have been in the top 10. And I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know. I was about to fly out. I booked a trip because I wanted to get away from everything, which is pretty silly in hindsight. I just thought I need to get away, heal my body and come back and give running a crack. And had these tickets booked to go to Asia and backpack around. And 2 days before that, I was in the hospital. My left eye swelled up. And they tried to reduce it, sent me home. I collapsed at the sink and my brother picked me up, rang the ambulance. I was in hospital again, and the next morning I woke up and I was diagnosed with leukemia. I had no idea what was going on, and my mum and family were just crying hysterically, you know, and I thought I was hurting them. So I was quite confused at where I was right then, and I just thought, you know, I need to just get on with the job and carry on and just get the chemo done, go home. But I never knew what it was going to do to me emotionally and physically and mentally, you know. Mentally, it was just going to ruin me this time, you know. It was going to destroy me because I was so used to being in nature. I had this deep connection with nature where I didn't really realize it. But my first day of chemo, I was locked in this 3x4 room and I was getting chemo, and, you know, my stomach lining stripped off and I was about to go in all this pain. And mentally, it was just wearing me down, Guy.
Oh, man, I can only imagine. You know, what was, I mean, there's a couple of things like, you know, obviously the running was taken away from you. And to be at that point, that's your life, right? Like, you know, you'd have had to put a huge amount of dedication to be that good in the first place.
Yeah.
And what was your diagnosis then? Like, what did they say when you know, you're 23, they've told you you got leukemia. What did they tell you about in terms of recovery and what to do and what to expect? Well,
when I went in there, I was handed with a heap of leaflets with all these different type of leukemias and everything. I really didn't understand what chemo was. I asked my previous boss what it was, and he had some form of cancer beforehand, and he told me a bit about it. But mine was completely different. Like, cancers are so different, and the treatment's so individualized and everything like that. And it turned out my cancer was very aggressive, and from the day I was diagnosed, I had about 2 to 3 weeks left to live before my white blood cells got totally out of control, which they were. So I didn't really understand. I went in, got diagnosed. 3 days later, I was having chemo. I was getting bone marrow aspirins. I was getting needles put in me, and I didn't comprehend anything, to be honest. I just had to learn as I went, I suppose. And learning was the biggest thing for me. So I was in this room and I was just mentally destroyed, physically destroyed. I understood good pain, running on the hills. I understood that as we go to the gym and stuff, you know, that good feeling, short-term pain, long-term gain kind of thing. I understood that, but the pain inside my head, I couldn't understand. I hated who I was when I was at the hospital, when I was allowed out for a week. I just hated the person who I looked back on. It wasn't the person who I was used to seeing. And I was so depressed, and I had no one to talk to. I was brought up in a small community as a kid where, you know, you don't show your emotions, you don't cry. So I suppressed those tears, and I used to lock myself in the toilet and just cry to myself because I couldn't talk to anybody.
Yeah.
Then one night, my mum and that went out. This was a couple of days I was allowed out of hospital. I thought, shivers, I can't handle this anymore. I can't handle the thoughts in my head. You know, these constant negative thoughts of, I hate you, you're pathetic, you're weak, you're a loser, you're effing nothing, you know, all this really bad stuff. And I just could not handle it. So I went to the rail. There was a balcony, and I thought, yeah, no, I'm going to end my life.
Was this were you still in the hospital at this point?
I was allowed out for a week.
Right.
This was between the cycles of chemo. So you'd have a month of treatment, then out for a week, then another month.
And how many months into the diagnosis was this?
That was about 2.5.
Okay.
Yeah, 2.5. So I was allowed out, and then I thought, yeah, I'm just gonna end this. I just can't do anything, and stepped my foot over the rail. You know, I love the height, so I thought it'd be a good way to do it. And I was a brush of wind just swept my right hand face. I can still feel it now, and it swept my head around, and I saw my mum's cup of tea, and I felt all my mum's love just come into me that moment. And I thought, I can't do this, you know. And I was just so confused and torn between the love of my mum and the fear of cancer and the fear of myself. And eventually that love brought me back, and I sat down, and I can still remember it now, Guy. I just sat down and I cried hysterically, putting my fingernails into my bald head, and I can still feel them. And I was just crying for like hours and hours. It was just something I can't really describe, but it was just, and then I knew I needed to really ask for help. So I used my strength and asked for some help, and there's an organisation called Canteen, which they look after young people with cancer, and they hooked me up with a psychologist.
So,
yeah.
So after the, so you've gone through the treatment.
Yep.
You've decided to not end your life, which I'm so glad you didn't, mate.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It was it.
And then what happened? You finished the treatment. You go home.
Yeah. So obviously I got that mental help. I was talking to David Garb, and basically changed my perception. It wasn't me that wanted to die. It was just the pain situation that I was in that wanted to die. So mentally I kind of got over that, and I just focused on nature and being the person who I used to be, and visualized a lot. I used that tool in the running, and just sat there, took the chemo, and that was 7 months of treatment. And I got back out, and I was confused again. I was back into my hometown, which is a beautiful place, but I just lost who I was again, and didn't know.
What year was this?
Sorry?
What year was this? When
This was 2011. So I got out, I was diagnosed on May the 14th, and I got out in November 2011. And then
so then that's when you started having counselling from David. You were back in...
Yeah, back in Greymouth, and doing all that, and just walking around with my head down aimlessly, you know, soul searching in a way. I spent the whole summer in the surf. I went surfing for the whole summer just by myself, and sometimes when there was no swell, I would just sit out there and just asking God questions and asking myself, who was I, what happened, you know, all these things. And then a friend rang me up and said, do you want to go to Everest Base Camp? And I was a bit confused, and I was because I don't know if I'm able to do this, will the doctors let me and stuff. So I was torn between making the decision, and it took me about 3 weeks to make the decision. And I was out in the surf one day, and I was, you know, asking the questions, and it just hit me in the heart again. And I said, yep, just go do it. Because I knew there was a high chance of relapsing.
Okay.
So, yeah, so 2 weeks later, I was off to Nepal to go up to base camp in April 2012.
And you got to base camp?
I got to base camp. I got altitude sickness on the way up, but me being stubborn, I continued on. I nearly punched my friend in the face because he wanted to carry my backpack. But, you know, if you start something, you finish it. That's just the way I see it. So it was beautiful. And being in Nepal really changed my perspective too. I understood that I was in a privileged position to suffer. A lot of those people had nothing. And I thought if they were in my situation, having chemo and cancer, you know, they wouldn't even have that opportunity. Here I was in a bed, I had my family, I had food, you know. I thought, jeepers, man, you were in such a privileged position to suffer, you know. How good was that? And it really I really felt grateful in a weird sense, you know, Guy. I really felt grateful to be where I was in New Zealand having first-class medical treatment. Yeah. So that changed my perception on a lot of things.
Yeah. Mate, everybody needs to hear what you just said then.
Yeah.
I really do. So once you got back, you've had a bit of a shift in perspective at this point, like you said. Like you're finding gratitude in the pain, which is a really not an easy thing to do. I can certainly relate to that. And then what happened next? Like, because obviously life goes on.
Yeah, life goes on. So yeah, I was in Nepal, and then I decided I was really embracing nature. Like I had this deep connection to the wind and nature, but I was really seeing it, and I was just so consumed with it. So I thought, nah, I'm going to continue on and backpack around Asia. And I backpacked around and did some cool things. And then I met a girl called Clara, and we kind of traveled together and kind of fell in love and stuff. But I had already booked a skydiving diploma course back in New Zealand to be able to do, because it's been a dream of mine. So I had that organized in July 2012. So I was backpacked for 3 months, fell in love with Clara, came back to New Zealand and started this course in commercial skydiving, which was probably one of the happiest times of my life. The freedom that I felt jumping out of the plane was just surreal. There was no chemo, no hospital, no anyone, no nothing. It was just me falling to the sky with this, like you could see the whole world from above. It was just beautiful, guy. And I was so happy and content with where I was. And, you know, I had Clara and we were Skyping and stuff, and I had a 2-week break. So I went over to Germany. She was a German girl, and I met her family, and we decided that at the end of the year she'd come out and live with me and go from there. So yeah, so here I was skydiving away, and all of a sudden the body just started deteriorating again.
And what year was that?
That was 2012.
Once the body started to give way again.
Yeah, so November 2012, it started deteriorating. I was getting constant night sweats again, and little platelet spots, little purple spots on my hands, and I got hypoxic when I jumped out of the plane, so I wasn't getting enough oxygen-rich blood to my tissues and organs, so my blood cells were kind of going low again, and I knew I knew I had cancer again because I knew the risks, but I was very content with myself. I knew this time it was going to be more serious treatment, but I was glad I took the opportunities I did with the time I had. So I just waited to my initial appointment, which was December the 14th, to get the diagnosis, and I kept skydiving as much as I could, you know, just enjoying life and doing that. And then November the 14th, I was diagnosed again, 2012.
Would you have skydived if you hadn't had cancer in the first?
Yeah, I would have. I did one when I was 18 for my 18th birthday, and it was kind of something that I was drawn to, but I just put it off because of my running and that back in the day and stuff. So
yeah, no, fair enough. Yeah. So the diagnosis come back. You said you kind of had the feeling that was going to happen.
Yeah.
And at this point, because the first time round, you know, you get diagnosed, and then within 3 days, like you've had no preparation. You don't know what your life's just changed in a split second, right?
Yeah.
And you know, this time round, it's happening again. Where were you mentally at this time, and were you just gonna go through all the treatment again?
That's a great question. I can remember it vividly. I was sad, because I was definitely sad because of what it did to my family. My family were more scared and fearful than I was. I was pretty content. You know, I'd been to base camp, I traveled, I'd fallen in love and become a skydiver. I did all the things that I wanted to do. So I was going in with an open mind, doing what I could, you know, take the treatment. I was going in for an allogenic stem cell transplant. I knew it would be tough, and I had a perspective of the chemo that I had before, and I knew that it was privileged to be where I was to get the treatment because of Nepal. So I was determined to try my best and do what I needed to do to get myself right. But if I died, I'd be content with that.
Okay.
So we went in. Clara moved over from Germany to be with me, which was fantastic. To have someone by your side, Guy, through such pain is just such a blessing. To be able to just hold someone's hand is something that I can't describe how powerful it is to have that connection to someone, just telling you they love you next to you. So mentally it was a lot easier, but physically this was going to be so much harder. The treatment was just so much tougher. The chemo was so much more toxic. They were preparing my body for an allogenic stem cell transplant. So basically I was getting a foreign donor to change my whole immune system. It was going to come from somebody else. So I had 2 months of chemo, and the second month of chemo, I started deteriorating really, really bad. I got diagnosed with neutropenic sepsis, which is a bacteria in the blood, and I was neutropenic. And I had these massive migraines, like someone was just stabbing me in the head with a knife, which put me up to life support, and I got put into a coma, induced coma.
And how long are you in the induced coma for?
I was in there for 10 days, and
wow. Do you recall anything?
I don't recall much. No, it was very blank. It was just nothing. Like I can't remember anything. Yeah. My parents told I wouldn't be able to wake up after, this was, there's a good chance I was going to die here.
Yeah.
But, I woke up and it was a complete miracle, and I was so skinny, Guy, like I was just a foreign alien.
Can you remember your weight at that point?
Yeah, it was around about 50 kg, 51.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was, I was very, very weak and skinny, and I couldn't walk and I couldn't talk because of the tube down my throat. And normally the normal cycle with the transplant is you have your last round of chemo and you get 6 weeks to 2 months off to recover, because the treatment for a transplant is just horrific. Like it's the worst of the worst. And I woke up from a coma, 51 kg. I couldn't walk. I couldn't talk. I didn't know. And they said, you got 2 weeks to get ready for a transplant. And I was like, you're kidding me. You know, I couldn't. So I was writing it on a bit of paper. I was like, why is that? The donor could only donate the cells at this certain time. And I had no other donor in the world to match me. It wasn't a perfect match, but it was the closest match they could find. So,
and if you didn't have the transplant, was that like life or death? You know, it is like.
Yeah, because the cancer is so aggressive, they had no other alternative. Chemo would have, you know, given me a bit more time, but the transplant was the only real option for a cure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How hell.
Yeah.
So you've gone ahead after the 2 weeks.
Yeah.
To have that. So how did you, like, what was it like, and how did your body respond straight after? I mean,
well, I got out, and it was the first 10 days I had these really bad hallucinations, like really, really bad hallucinations. I didn't know where I was because, all the medication and drugs and stuff. But I just used to sit outside during the day, and I'd just shut my eyes and I'd feel the sun come into my face and just try and draw as much energy as I could from the outside world into myself to try and heal myself internally. And then transplant day come, and the treatment leading up to the transplant is horrific. It was high toxic chemo with full body radiation, where they lie you down and just zap your whole body with radiation. And, you know, you come into the semi-coma state. So I had to wait till these stem cells arrived from Germany. They had 92 hours to get from Germany to me. My immune system was just dying. So normally after chemo, your immune system grows back up. With the treatment that I had that I just described, your whole immune system just deteriorates. It never grows back until these stem cells come to regenerate a new immune system.
Mm.
So I was in this semi-coma-like state. I just sat in my bed, and then the stem cells come. It was happy days, and it was just a blood transfusion come in. The stem cells know where to go into the bone marrow and start to repopulate, regenerate. But you have this risk when you sign up for it of getting graft versus host disease, which basically is graft rejection. And there was a high chance of getting that because the donor was a foreigner. She was a woman and she was from Germany. So it made the risk a lot higher. But I had no other option, so I had to do it. And sure enough, I developed the graft versus host disease, and it was just horrific. Like, my medication pump bag was just like a thing from a sci-fi movie guy. It was, you know, I just sat there and just let them put everything into me. And the body's an incredible thing, what it can take and what it can do, you know. I just sat there with my eyes closed. I just look out to nature and just constantly look at this tree, this branch, and pretend I was the branch or the tree standing outside, feeling the wind. And I'm trying to visualize that inside my body. And I just sat there for about maybe 2.5 months before my body kind of was making this match. So
and then it started to take after the 2.5 months.
Yeah, because of the medication, the cyclosporin and prednisone was so high, and other anti-immune drugs. It was kind of balancing out the graft versus host disease. So I was on very, very high medication. I was very weak, and finally, after 2.5 months of just lying in my bed in hospital, I was allowed out, and that was just like, you know, I'd be spewing up 50 times a day. I'd be shitting myself, you know, 40 times a day. It was horrific. Yeah, the body was,
So which year was this now?
So that's 2013.
So 2013.
Yeah.
There's still 3 years to go before I met you at Wim Hof. Now, I'm glad I started there, because people are starting to get perspective now of what's actually been going on.
Yeah.
At the moment, you know, so you've come out in 2013 after that horrendous time. Then what happened? You settled back into New Zealand again?
Yeah, so I'm out of hospital. I spent basically that year in hospital, and then I got out. And then 2014, I moved up to Nelson just to get some clarity in my head with my partner Clara, and enjoy the sun. It's a beautiful spot up in Nelson, and I stayed at my auntie's holiday home and stuff like that. Walked along the beach, and I got a part-time job up there at a Nelson Boys high school, and they fed me for free, and I got a accommodation for free. And I just did simple stuff. I turned vegetarian. I thought that was being healthy, and then I tried being vegan and stuff, but my body was coming all right, but it was just very slow. And
yeah,
my partner decided that she'd go back to Germany to study because they get free education. I said, yeah, sure. By the end of the year, hopefully I'm in a good condition, stable condition, I can come over and join you. So into 2014, around Christmas, I went over to be with Clara. She'd been over there for about 3 or 4 months now. And I thought I was strong enough, but I really wasn't. But love pulls you in all different directions, and I didn't want to. Yeah, so I went over there, and it was massively cold, you know, -10, -12 days in Berlin, Germany, and I got pneumonia. I got put in hospital over there for a week, and I had to fly back home because I just couldn't handle it over there. So I come back home after pneumonia and try to get the body to recover again. I moved back home to Greymouth. Yeah, I was pretty upset with myself not being able to be with my partner and that, but I tried to recover, heal myself, and she called me up in April 2015 that year and said, oh, I miss you a lot. You know, things are happening. I need you to come over. And I wasn't prepared, but love pulls you in all different directions, and I tried to give it a go because I didn't want to die again, not knowing that I didn't try. So I went over. It was a chaotic time between both of us. She was a different person. She had her stuff going on. I had my stuff going on. I managed to spend 6 months there. I learned German, which was great. So that was a positive, and we ended up breaking up. And I flew back from Germany with my heart broken. I was just torn apart, but the stress of being over there, my graft-versus-host disease had just flared up again, just tremendously flared up. And shivers, I was so depressed again, Guy. Yeah, it was tough because my whole perception of love had gone out the window. You know, I'd fought for it and, you know, fought for it. And now it's just been gone. Clara had been gone, and I was so upset. So I just smashed myself at the gym, and stress levels went high, and my body deteriorated. The GVHD was flared up, and then all of a sudden I was back in hospital. My whole face went red and bright, and I was diagnosed with shingles, which then turned into trigeminal neuralgia, which is in the trigeminal nerve in the face. And this pain that I had, called trigeminal neuralgia, was described as the worst pain known to man. It's also known as the suicide disease, as 25% of people commit suicide with it. And the way I can describe this pain, I was in the hospital for 3 months, getting treatment. It's like someone stabbing your face while your face is getting burnt, while someone's with a cheese grater going up and down with your eye. And these episodes happen for 10 to 15 minutes, you know, 3 times a day sometimes. And I was just screaming in the hospital ward. And they put me on all the pain medication you could think of, you know, morphine, tramadol, lignocaine.
So what I got to ask you, mate, what kept you going at this point? Like, seriously, like, I'm only trying to put myself in your shoes at that point, right? Yep. And for me, it almost feels like no matter which way you turn, the whole world is against you at that stage.
Yeah, that's how it exactly felt. But to me, Guy, we can always make a choice in life, and there's always the negative and the positive. And there was so much negative inside my body, but yeah, there's that small fragment of love that sustained me inside my body. And that was from my mum and the family that I have. I have such a beautiful family, Guy, that I just held so close to my heart. And I wanted to give in so many times, and I knew I could have done it, but I just could not do that and put that pain and burden on my family. I just couldn't do it. And so I had to hold on to that small fragment of love that I possibly could.
So I just continued to find the light in the darkness of it all.
I did. I had to, you know, I had to, because that was part of living and dying. You know, it's like, you know, you look, I'm a big history buff, and I look at the people that were in the trenches and stuff, you know, they fought for love and all that. And I had to do that, the same thing, you know, that's all you had to do. I just held on to it. And yeah, I got out, you know, this pain finally subsided, and my graft-versus-host disease had flared up so much that they couldn't handle it with the normal treatment of steroids and immunosuppressants. So I had to get sent to Melbourne for treatment and get this treatment called extracorporeal photopheresis, which was like it's like a blood. It's a form of dialysis in a way, but more technical. They're specifying on one lymphocyte called a T lymphocyte, and they're trying to target that.
Right.
Yes. So 1st of April 2016, I got sent to Melbourne.
Okay, now we're getting close to the Wim Hof Retreat. So,
Correct.
So
Correct.
what happened there then? Like, how did you hear about Wim Hof in the first place?
Yeah, so I started the treatment, and all my friends were, sending me nice messages and things like that. But I had this prayer beforehand. I just wanted this treatment to help me, but I wanted something outside of my treatment to help me. So I'd always been looking for it. Hence the reason I'd tried all these different diets and all these different things. But I'm really looking something that could resonate towards me, that I could really feel, Like as we talked before, feeling is understanding, and I'd tried all these things, but I just couldn't resonate. So I was always on the lookout. I was doing these yoga things and stuff like that. And my friend sent me this Vice documentary of Wim Hof. He said, man, check this dude out, And I was like, whoa, shivers, I mean, we've met him, his energy's profound, and it was on the documentary. I was like, what's he done to himself, And it was just breathing and cold immersion, meditation, and just commitment. And so I typed him in, and I found this 10-week course, and I was pretty excited. So I started the course and was a week into it, and then I typed him up again, and I found out that he was coming to Melbourne, and I was like, shivers, just my luck. And so I was, doing the cold showers and stuff. But just for the viewers out there too, like I was in this depressed state when I was in Melbourne, and I tried my first cold shower, which was tremendously hard. It was the winter in Melbourne too. And I thought I'd do it. And I got out of the first cold shower. I went for 2 minutes, and I felt immensely good. Now, this was a game changer for me, because it was just maybe 1 or 2%. And I thought, if that could make me feel good, what else could do it? So this became religious for me. Every morning, boom, cold shower, every morning. And at least I had, 5% better than what I was yesterday, 5% better. So I seen Wim was in Melbourne, and he was doing this retreat, and I decided to sign up for it. I thought, no, I've got to see this man. I've got to go do it all and meet some like-minded people. Yeah.
And then how did you, I can only imagine how you began to feel. So you get to the Wim Hof Retreat. You're there to learn and immerse yourself in everything.
Yeah.
And obviously you're looking at, like you said, different ideas and philosophies to support your rehabilitation, and with this being one of them. But yet I meet you and you're in the middle of a heart attack, and you can't even participate in something that was so, it didn't happen often. It was a very unique situation, Wim coming to Melbourne, and I had just interviewed him on the 180 podcast back then. And, I remember flying down and so talk through what happened then. So, because obviously I sat with you for 20 minutes. I wasn't sure what was going on. I could clearly see you weren't, you were really struggling. Didn't realize it was a heart attack till after. And then the ambulance picks you up, and then all of a sudden, Josh is not at the retreat anymore. And it was like, I didn't even know your name at that point, I think.
Yeah, I didn't even know who you were too, Guy. We didn't even cross names. It was just holding my chest going to the UK. And so I got taken away, and I was holding my chest, and they were giving me all this stuff to try and relieve the symptoms and that. And I was just crying. I cried for the whole hour back to Geelong Hospital, and just all those negative thoughts set in. I can't know that I couldn't participate. I couldn't do nothing. Weak, loser, pathetic, continuous. And then, but still that little fragment of love that I had for my family was still there. It's just the smallest little bit. I went into Geelong Hospital, and I was swearing at the doctors, and this is not like me at all, to say F you to a doctor or a nurse, that's not like me at all. And I was doing that. And then they sent me to Peter McCullum Hospital. I had another heart attack. I sent the ECGs upside down, and my auntie was there with me, and it was great having her by my side, and she was holding my hand and things. And then they sent me to the Royal Melbourne Hospital, the cardiac unit. And I was there for 28 days, and they could not make a decision whether to give me a heart bypass or stent my left main artery. And I had probably about half a dozen, 10, 12 heart attacks in that period. And I just sat there and had one, and I would just be crying and devastated. But finally they made a decision. They stented my left main artery, and the next day I was out, and it was rehab again. It was back to square one. So I look back to where I was that month prior at the Wim Hof Retreat, and I thought, I better say a thank you message to the man who got me the ambulance, because, you know, and that man was you guys. So I put it on. We had that, I think it was, what did we have? A bit of a group forum chat, wasn't it?
Yeah. We had a Facebook group.
Yeah. So I said, to whom it was that that helped me in the room that day, thank you very much. I'm here now and I'm out and of the hospital, and yeah, thank you. And then you replied to me and said, that's me, mate. You know, here's a podcast of our retreat. And I was a bit hesitant to listen to it because I was pretty jealous that you guys got to do it and stuff. But Samir Javed, who was there, you know, he was keeping in contact, which was fantastic, and giving me updates and that. So I thought, no, I'll have a listen. And you were interviewing a man called Dave O'Brien,
who's been on my podcast twice this time. Yeah.
So this podcast was about, really, it was another thing in my life that was going to change my life, listening to this podcast. And you guys were talking away and you talked about the retreat, fantastic stuff. But what you talked about was when Dave started talking, and as we know, he's so scientifically deep and so knowledgeable. You know, it was like his words were resonating to me because I had the scientific knowledge of what I had gone through the hospital, and he was pulling out all these words that I understood into like a holistic health way. And I was thinking, I think this is what I've been looking for. And he talked about this thing called fifth element wellness. And I was pretty excited. Guy. And it was about where I was staying. It was an hour away, and I got the train there and I went to Fifth Element. I thought, I'm going to go check this place out. So I went in there and booked my appointment, and sure enough, I'm walking down and I didn't know what to expect. You know, I thought it might be this amazing new place or something. And I walked down and I couldn't know where it was. You know where it is, Queen's Parade. Yeah, it's like a factory area kind of way. And here I walked into this like gym and I thought, shivers, you know. And then this big hairy man walked up to me, you know, like a pirate. And I think you know who I'm talking about. He goes, Joshy, is that you, mate? And I didn't know who he was. And he goes, mate, I've been wondering how you're doing. And he picks me up and gives me this massive hug. And I was like, jeepers, man, you look like Wim Hof himself. But his name was, as you know, Mark Clora, a good friend of ours, who absolute legend. And he just had this energy about him that I was just shivers. What are they doing here? Are you juicing them up on drugs or something? And sure enough, I was going to sit next down to the man, the myth, the legend himself, Dave O'Brien. And yeah, I went into his office, give him my blood results, and he looked through it, and we were chatting for about 2.5 hours about the in-depths of the gut and you know, hormones and hot therapy, cold therapy, everything. You know how Dave is. He was so analytical with his words, and I was just blown away that, you know. So I thought, whatever you say, mate, I'm going to do it. Yeah, so.
And he deeply cares. You know, they all do. Yeah.
I spent a lot of time with doctors and nurses and people, and you can tell when someone generally cares and wants to help. And Dave just had that passion and enthusiasm in him that was just on a next level. Yeah.
So then, it's, you know, it's what I love about this story as well is that the coincidences and the synchronicities that started to take place for you, with even the fact that even though you couldn't go through the Wim Hof retreat, there was an element you needed to be there, and that even that suffering from being there, looking back, connected you to all these different other elements that's really changed a trajectory moving forward.
Yeah, that retreat in such a negative way really opened up many more doors for me than if I didn't. Yeah, I'm just so, you know, it sounds weird. I'm grateful that happened to me in a way to get to Fifth Element and be where I am right now, Guy. I mean, I've been doing with Dave all this stuff for about 3 years now.
Yeah.
And my life has completely changed. I'm not saying Dave's the complete cure, and I'm not saying my medical treatment's the complete cure, but putting them together has made the package so much more fuller. And here I am sitting to you today, and Saturday I did a gym session. You know, I couldn't even bench press. Now I'm bench pressing 50 kg. I'm squatting 60. I'm doing all these things. And my first day I was bench pressing a stick, and I struggled with that for 10 reps, you know. My health inside, the clarity inside my head with these gut protocols Dave set me up with, and constantly cold therapy, constantly sauna therapy, constantly meditation, you know, all these 1%ers integrating into one has just really,
But
really.
they've all been selective and timing, isn't it? With each different modality, bring it into where you're at on your journey as well. You know, working under Dave, like, what do you think if you had to summarize, you know, the last 3 years? What bits of the puzzle had the greatest impact, you think, to allow you to move into, you know, this healthier version of what I see in front of me today?
I don't think you could put it down to one answer, Guy. I think it's a collective of everything you put together into one package. But for me, the people, I'd have to say the people. For me, that's where health starts, with the people around me, and the people that are in Fifth Element Wellness. I'm not talking about Dave, but the people in that facility are just amazing humans. I've got amazing family over here and friends, and those people have helped me get to the position where I am right now. I have a beautiful, amazing girl in my life now that I met, you know, a year after I walked into Fifth Element Wellness. And that's only because I had the confidence in myself and the clarity in my mind to be able to talk to her on the plane going to my treatment, you know. And, you know, she's just changed my life, and I'm just so blessed to have her, you know, have her in my life. And here I am, just overwhelmed with gratitude, talking to you, Guy. I mean, you helped me that day 3 years ago, and here we are sharing our stories and helping other people, which is a true blessing in this life, Guy. You know, it really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, during that period of time, because I remember there's an interview, I'll mention it now, that we did, myself, you and Dave. It's on my old podcast at 180, but we were sitting in Fifth Element Yoga Studio the day before my workshop. I think it must be about 18 months old, that interview now, but you can dig it up on iTunes. It's definitely around.
Yeah.
But, you know, we often spoke about you wanting to write a book.
Yep.
And you know, and to see what you've been through, what your body's been through, and to come out the other side, like, it was very clear to see. There's no doubt in my mind, Josh is going to get a book out at some stage. You know, it was just a natural progression. So tell us about the book, mate. What does it capture, and what do you hope to get from it, and how's the response been? There you go. It's 3 questions there.
3 questions. So, what does it capture? Well, it just captures my story. Essentially, it's a memoir of cancer, love, and endurance. It really represents perseverance for me. Perseverance is so important. I work with a lot of school kids today, and I think it's kind of lacking in society. As we talk, you know, we kind of give up on things. But I tell you, I mean, if you keep continuing and walking, the treasure's at the end. It's always there. It's you feel the purpose inside me, and my purpose was to suffer, endure, and continue, and hold on to that little bit of love that I could. And to anyone listening, I know how tough life can be, cancer or no cancer. Life is generally tough, but I feel as an individual in society, as in a group of people, it's our job to have that load on our back and just carry on, because the gold or the treasure or the purpose inside you will come at the end, and you will find it. And it might take a year, 2, 3, 4, 10, but it's always there. And I think I found it with Sybil and the woman that I have beside me right now. Yeah. And what was the other question? Sorry, Guy.
Well, I got another question for you, though. The Wind at My Back. Why that title?
It represents the people that have really helped me and been behind me, Guy. I have such a connection to the wind itself, and I talk about that a lot. And the people are the wind behind me, pushing me forward. And, you know, like yourself, Guy, putting your hand on my shoulder and calling an ambulance, and then I say thanks, and then you send me the podcast, and the likes of Dave, my family, my mum. So yeah, the wind at my back.
Beautiful. Yeah, I love it, mate. And now, when was the book released?
It was released start of March. No, 28th of February. It was quite ironic. 28th of February, I had my transplant in 2013. Wow. 28th of February, my book got released in New Zealand.
There you go. Yeah. So it's been 6 weeks? It's been out? 6 weeks?
6 weeks. Yeah, 6, 7 weeks.
From recording this. And tell me, how's the response been?
Yeah, I mean, overwhelming, Guy. Shivers. I've been doing TV interviews here in New Zealand, and doing some magazine interviews and things. And the first week of sales, it was #2 New Zealand author bestseller of the week, you know. And then the month of March, it was the 22nd best sold book on the bestsellers list for the month of March. All books, that's international books. And everything's sold in New Zealand. So, I mean, like I say, I'm just pretty blown away to be here talking to you, talking about this book and feeling so good inside myself. Maybe that's the treasure that you continue to get, that overwhelming of gratitude you have for life, and you don't have any fear of what may come in your life because you're so prepared.
Yeah. Mate, no, it's absolutely phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And what are your hopes for the future from this point moving forward? Where do you see yourself in, say, 12 months from now?
Well, I've written down like Fifth Element with Matt Hu. We get 3 goals. I've already achieved them already, but I want to get into probably maybe a speaking gig and just inspiring others, because I've got so many profound messages, as you would know, Guy, doing your thing. I mean, the response from people when you tell your story, and people you don't even know emailing you saying, thank you, you've really helped me with my life. And I know how important it is for someone to share a story to get inspiration to keep going forward. And we all need one another's stories to get an idea of where we're at. And I think it's so powerful to do that. And I'd love to be able to continue sharing my story with others to help them through their tough times. Like I say, cancer or no cancer. And just help one another as we go along in this bumpy road of life, I suppose.
Totally. Yeah. And the more people I hear it, the more you'll inspire, mate. The more you'll inspire. I've got a couple of questions for you.
Yes.
I ask everyone on the show. If you could have dinner with anyone tonight from anywhere in the world at any time frame, who would it be, do you think? And why?
I don't know if he's still on this world, but I'd love to have a chat to the big man upstairs, Jesus, to see what he would say. But if there was a man on the earth right now, I'd love to have a sit down and talk with Jordan Peterson, follow him a bit. Yeah, probably them two at the minute.
Yeah, that would actually make a really good conversation if you had a pair of them there.
Yeah.
What does your morning routine look like these days, mate?
Oh, no, it's pretty structured. Depending on the day, I wake up with a prayer of gratitude, thanking that I'm waking up next to Sybil and that I have the breath to be able to go forward. I do some mild breathing. I'll jump into a cold shower. I'll do some stretching, and then have, like apple cider vinegar and fish oil and hemp oil and these kind of things, and just eat some good vegetables and some solid fats in the morning.
Beautiful.
Start my day.
That sounds like a good start to the day, mate.
Oh, cold shower in the morning, guys. Shivers. Once you take it, you can't go back, mate. It's just
You're
so
in
good.
New Zealand. Like, it's a bit colder over there than when I am in Byron Bay, mate.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Mate, what would you say to somebody listening to this that might be, in a bit of a dark place right now?
Start, there's a saying that, knock and the door shall be open. And I think ask for help. Just ask someone if you can't, if you're not looking, if you're stuck in that dark place, just reach out for someone, and then something may open from that, or just, start by saying that, and something may open for you. You never know where that may take you. I mean, all I did was turn up to the retreat. I had the heart attack, and I just sent you a message, and look where it's taken me right now. Knock on that person's door and see what they can give you as a person. Just ask for help. Ask for help.
Yeah. And with everything we've covered today and talked about, are there any last things you'd like to share with the listeners?
No, I think maybe just a quote actually in the end of my book, but they could probably get a lot out. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work, that you may be mature, complete, and not lacking anything. James chapter 1, 2-4. Now, I really hold on to that, hold on to that perseverance. Life's tough for everybody, but continue to hold on to the love within inside you and continue forward. And your treasure or what you feel afterward will be so profound that you can't even explain it to other people. And the gratitude that you hold on to it is just so overwhelming. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful, mate. And so if we want to buy your book, where can we go and get it? Especially us Aussies, mate.
joshkomen.com. There's a website there. You can jump on that, and there's a distributor that can send it over. I'm trying to get it into the stores in Australia at the minute, but that's a bit of a work in progress. But joshkomen.com on the internet, you can chuck on the link. And
it'll ship from NZ to Aussie. Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. And if you're listening to this on audio, guys, you can literally pause it on your podcast app, scroll up or down, whichever way you think about it, and then there'll be a link there to the book as well to be able to order a copy. So, Josh, mate, thank you so much for coming on today. You had me in tears. I'm glad the camera was on you, mate, not me. Sure.
No, it always gets me teared up when I start talking about a few things too, Guy. But it's been an absolute privilege to talk to you today, Guy, and I'm glad you're looking so well too, mate. You know, thank you for coming into my life and being the person you are and spreading the message what you're doing, Guy. You do a fantastic job, and I'm just so grateful that I have a friendship with you and know the person that you are, mate. So, no, thanks for having me, mate.
Oh, you're more than welcome, mate. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
thanks, buddy.
You, Guy. Cheers, bro.